Welcome back to We Love This Book. Today I'm going to talk through my 5 favourite books that are already out or are coming out in July. So I've got 3 novels, a memoir and a YA book. So I'm going to start with the YA book, which is Lorelei by Laura Dockrill and which is published by Hotkey Books. Now I was a little bit sceptical about this one because it's about mermaids and I was a little bit unsure of how that would work without being kind of very fluffy and sort of a bit young for a YA book. Even though I loved Laura Dockrill's middle grade books, the Darcy Burdock series, and I should have had more faith because this is brilliant. Manages to be a really kind of gritty take on a mermaid story. There's some really kind of almost quite frightening teen pirates who are very lawless. There's a really kind of moving, darker kind of origins story to how the mermaids became mermaids. It's very playful with kind of gender roles, like the mermaid society is a matriarchal one, and that's kind of looked at as really interesting. And also the main characters, Lorelei the mermaid and the boy who finds her, is really, they're really convincing teen characters, and I really kind of bought into their relationship and the world that she creates. The sea is actually a narrator, which when I first saw that as a chapter heading I was like, oh my goodness, how is this gonna work? But it really does. It makes it very lyrical and it's beautifully written, so very highly recommended. The memoir is The Last Act of Love by Kathy Rentzenbrink. Now I actually work with Kathy at the bookseller, but that does not mean that this is anything other than completely genuine. This is one of the most beautiful books I've read so far this year. It tells the story of Kathy and her brother Matthew, who died when she was younger and remained in, it's not quite a coma, but in this sort of state for 8 years before Kathy and her family had to make the decision to sort of withdraw like kind of food and drink and sustenance to let him die. And while it is incredibly sad, it made me cry a lot. It's hugely hopeful and inspiring. Right, I've got 3 novels. So firstly is The Last Pilot by Benjamin Johncock, which is published by Myriad Editions. This book really reminds me of the TV series Mad Men, in that it's set in America in the 50s and 60s, and it's got that kind of melancholy feel to it. It's not bleak, but it's not a cheerful book. It's about a test pilot who, at the start of the book, he lives in the desert with his wife and he does test flights. But then once the space race kicks into gear, he's kind of offered this opportunity to be part of that, and it's about his conflicts between kind of duty and responsibility and a sort of chance for glory, and his relationship with his wife. It's so beautifully written. It is quite melancholy at times. There's some pretty heartbreaking scenes in it. My only criticism is just that I would have liked to spend more time with his wife in the second half of the book, and the focus is very firmly on Jim. So yeah, one for fans of kind of books set in that time period, of fans of Mad Men as well. Right, next one is Early One Morning by Virginia Bailey, which is published by Virago. This book has a brilliant and kind of terrifying premise. It's not terrifying, it's not a thriller. So it opens in Rome in the early 1940s, and a Italian woman is walking through the city and she sees a group of Jewish people being kind of herded into a lorry, and she knows obviously where they're headed, and she makes the briefest of eye contact with a woman who's being herded into the lorry, and in that second the Jewish woman pushes her child into Chiara's arms, and she responds and she takes him and she says, no, what are you doing, this is my nephew, he shouldn't be going that way. And the mother goes, and Chiara's left with a little boy who she doesn't know anything about, who is really traumatised by what's just happened to his family but doesn't really understand it. And it's the story of their relationship. It flashes back between what happened after that, but then it also has a contemporary storyline with Chiara as an old woman and the kind of repercussions of that event. It's so beautifully written, it's so evocative of Rome. It made me desperate to go and visit Rome. I've been to Rome once but it was raining, and I'm now desperate to go again. Kara's such a brilliant character. She's so nuanced and you can really empathise with her, but she's very human. And it will really make you think about right and wrong and how those things aren't necessarily clearly cut, or even when they are, the repercussions of them. Or just because you're doing the right thing, it doesn't mean that it's an easy thing. So very much recommended for fans of historical fiction, but also just good books. Right, last book I've got to talk about is The Ecliptic by Benjamin Wood, which is published by Scribner, which is part of Simon & Schuster. It's their new kind of literary list. So this is one of my absolute favourite books of the year so far. It's up there with Kate Atkinson's new book, A God in Ruins. It just ticks all my boxes in the sense that it's astoundingly well written. Some of the turns of phrases are just beautiful, but there's a proper plot. You know, I'm not a fan of books which I want to admire a book, but I also want to feel something, and this just really manages to do both of those things. You'll be moved by the language and you'll also be moved by the plot. It's a difficult one to talk about without giving too much away, and I don't want to spoil the experience of kind of discovering the way that Ben kind of uncovers things. But I will say it opens at a kind of artist's retreat on an island off the Turkish coast, and we find out about an artist called Nell and why she has gone to Portmantle the retreat and what has led her to kind of shut herself off from the world and why she's there. Kind of flashes back to the art scene in 1960s London, which I thought was fascinating as well, as someone who doesn't really know anything about that. It's one for fans of, it's not similar to Eleanor Catton's Illuminaries or any of Ishiguro works, and it's not sort of similar stories, but I did think it had, if you like those, I think you will like this in the sense that it's got kind of lots of layers going on, there's lots to discover. It's a book that I'm desperate to read again, because I think having read it all the way through, there's a lot to pick up on a second read through. But really it's just one for fans of beautiful writing with a proper plot and proper characters. So those are my 5 favourites for July, and as always we have got these copies to give away. So if you would like to win one of these 5 books, leave us a comment saying which one you'd like to win and why you'd like to read it. You can either comment below here on the YouTube video, or if you're watching this on welovethisbook.com, use the discuss comments. If you're commenting on YouTube, please do leave your Twitter handle so we can get in touch with you if you've won. We would love to hear what you've been reading recently, what you have enjoyed, if you're planning on reading any of these, if you've already read any of these. So do get in touch in the comments, or say hello to us at We Love This Book on Twitter or on welovethisbook.com.